You ruined everything!
Strap in, because this wild chain of events still feels unreal, even months later. My ex figured she was leveling up when she dumped me for my own intern, flaunting their fancy first-class Paris trip. What she didn't know was that I held the reins on his company credit card, and I was tracking every shady charge. Long story short, they wound up stuck in France with no cash at all. Let me paint the scene, since details matter. I'm a VP at a huge global tech company, climbing the ladder for 8 years straight. I've been with Rachel for nearly 2 years. We met at a conference. She worked marketing at a smaller firm, earned a steady income, but nothing extravagant. From my view, our bond was strong. We made plans for the future, the full picture. Then last Tuesday night, she blew everything up at Chez Laurent, the elegant French bistro we'd gone to since our third date. Perfect setting for maximum embarrassment, right? She waited until after we ordered starters, then dove into this well-rehearsed speech about us drifting apart and her craving more passion and drive in life. And then came the drama. She leaned in across the table, eyes flashing with spite, and dropped the big reveal. She'd found someone amazing, a man who matched her ambition. According to her, he was this highly successful entrepreneur, whisking her away to Paris for a week of pure romance and luxury. First class on Air France, 5-star Palace Hotel, the whole dream package. She glowed as she bragged about their Friday flight, straight into Charles de Gaulle, stressing how he insisted on the best because that's just who he is. She wanted me crushed, picturing her with her perfect man strolling the Seine while I sat at home picking up the pieces. But fate has a twisted sense of humor. As she raved about his drive, charm, and big plans, I started piecing things together. The timing lined up with a thought nagging at the back of my head. See, 3 months earlier, our company launched an elite internship program, pulling in top MBA talent from Harvard, Wharton, Stanford, heavy hitters. One guy stood out, David Chen. Sharp as a blade, maybe 26, with that mix of charisma and ambition that drew people in. He was placed right in my division because of his stellar record. David had a way with clients and colleagues alike, and everyone saw him as a future star. Since my team handles major international deals, often with Europe, I issued him a corporate Amex with a high limit. This wasn't the normal setup for interns, but from the start, David looked like he could be leadership material. The card was meant strictly for real work costs, client meals, travel bookings, hotel stays tied to company trips. Giving it to him was my way of testing if he could handle the kind of trust executives deal with daily. So when Rachel started boasting about first-class tickets and a fancy week in Paris, my brain instantly began running the math. David's intern salary sat around $55,000 a year. Solid pay for his age, but not close to what covers last-minute European luxury travel. The only explanation made sense. He was running personal charges on the company's card. While Rachel basked in her own performance, I kept my face calm and my tone light. I asked harmless little questions about flight times and airlines, letting her think she was tearing me apart. She eagerly spilled it all. Flight numbers, hotel names, even the gate they'd board from, likely picturing me crying about it later. But in my head, I was already mapping out a counterplay with the same cold precision I use when dismantling a rival firm. That evening, while Rachel packed her belongings from my apartment with theatrical sighs and pointed comments about starting fresh, I retreated to my home office and logged into our corporate expense management portal. What I discovered was absolutely breathtaking in its sheer stupidity and audacity. David had gone completely off the rails with company funds over the past week. The charges were laid out like evidence in a fraud case. 2 first-class round-trip tickets on Air France, $14,800. 7-night reservation at Hotel Plaza Athénée, $8,400. Airport ATM cash advance, $1,200. Additional charges for premium airport lounges, overpriced departure terminal shopping, restaurant reservations, even expensive champagne purchases. This kid was living like absolute royalty on my corporate account. This wasn't just a policy violation. This was career-ending criminal fraud wrapped up in breathtaking arrogance. David was gambling his entire professional future on either successfully hiding these expenses or betting that I wouldn't notice the discrepancies. He was making an extraordinarily poor wager against someone who built their career on obsessive attention to financial details. When Rachel finished her dramatic packing performance, she paused theatrically at my apartment door for one final vindictive moment. "Well, Michael," she said with fake sympathy, "I guess this is goodbye. I'm off to start my incredible new adventure. My amazing man is taking me to the most romantic city in the world. I looked directly at her with completely neutral expression and simply replied, I hope you have a wonderful flight and everything goes exactly as planned. For the next 2 days, I watched their pre-departure expenses accumulate through the corporate portal like a real-time feed of impending disaster. Airport parking fees, last-minute shopping sprees, premium departure lounge access, overpriced terminal restaurants. Every charge that popped up just reinforced my certainty about David's spectacular lack of judgment. Friday evening arrived, and I settled into my home office with a glass of excellent scotch to monitor their journey's progress. Pulled up the Air France flight tracking website and watched their status updates in real time. Gate assignment, boarding announcement, pushback from terminal, takeoff, climbing to cruising altitude. I tracked that little airplane icon as it progressed across the Atlantic Ocean, calculating distance until they passed the point of no return. That's when I executed my carefully planned strategy with surgical precision. Step 1 involved drafting and sending David a text message that would forever alter his professional trajectory. David, this message serves as official notification that your employment with this firm is terminated immediately for gross misconduct and fraudulent misuse of company assets. Your corporate credit card has been permanently deactivated. Formal termination paperwork and full repayment demands will be delivered to your home address. Do not attempt to contact me or anyone else at this company. I hit send and watched the message deliver instantly to his phone somewhere 30,000 feet over the Atlantic. Step 2 required a phone call to our 24/7 corporate card emergency response line. The sleepy customer service representative answered after 2 rings. I identified myself using my full name and executive ID number, then reported suspected fraudulent activity on David's account. As the authorizing vice president for his card, I possessed absolute authority to freeze everything immediately. Within minutes, every single transaction David had made got flagged for investigation and chargeback procedures. Now picture their arrival experience in Paris. They're probably champagne drunk from first-class service, giddy with excitement about their romantic European adventure, taking selfies and planning their week of luxury. They grab an expensive taxi from Charles de Gaulle to their 5-star hotel, waltz confidently up to the elegant reception desk, where a polite concierge checks their reservation, types on his computer, frowns slightly, then delivers the soul-crushing news. I am terribly sorry, sir, but the payment method used for this reservation has been declined by the issuing bank. Your booking is unfortunately canceled. Their fairy tale vacation instantly transformed into a financial nightmare. David's wallet contained nothing but a useless piece of plastic where his corporate credit card used to provide unlimited spending power. His personal checking account, funded by intern salary, couldn't cover even one night at a budget youth hostel, let alone last-minute return flights to America. Approximately 8 hours after their plane landed, my phone started buzzing with international calls from French numbers. I let every single one go straight to voicemail. Then came the text message avalanche from Rachel's number, each one more frantic. What the hell did you do? The hotel won't let us check in. David's card keeps getting declined everywhere. He just received some message about being fired. Is this your sick idea of revenge? We have literally no money. We're completely stranded. You have to fix this situation immediately. After enduring dozens of increasingly desperate messages, I decided to grant Rachel one final response. I typed carefully, "This sounds like a personal problem between you and your dynamic, successful entrepreneur. As I mentioned at dinner, I hope you have a wonderful vacation and everything works out exactly as you deserve." Then I systematically blocked her phone number, blocked her across every social media platform, and digitally erased her from my existence just as completely as I'd erased her vacation funding. Within hours, Rachel's friends started contacting me with panicked messages about the misunderstanding and demanding I help fix the situation. Messages about how cruel I was being, how Rachel was stuck in a foreign country, how I needed to be the bigger person. I didn't respond to any of them, just methodically blocked every number that contacted me about this situation. This wasn't cruelty. This was natural consequences playing out in real time. Monday morning, I marched into my supervisor's office with a thick folder of printed documentation detailing David's fraudulent spending spree, laid out the complete timeline, highlighted every unauthorized personal expense, explained my swift, decisive action to protect company assets and minimize our legal exposure. Both my immediate supervisor and our head of human resources were not only completely supportive, but actually impressed by my quick thinking. My boss clapped me on the shoulder and said, "Outstanding work, Michael. You acted decisively to protect the firm's interests and demonstrated exactly the kind of executive judgment we value. Better to discover this kid's true character now, rather than 6 months down the line, when he'd have access to sensitive client information. David got permanently blacklisted from our company and all associated subsidiaries. My quick thinking got noted in my personnel file as exemplary leadership and financial oversight. Professionally speaking, this entire situation actually enhanced my reputation within the organization, but I was absolutely dying to know how they managed to escape their Parisian financial prison. The answer came through our office's gossip network about 10 days later. Apparently, Rachel had been forced to make absolutely humiliating phone calls to her parents back home, confessing that her incredibly successful businessman had actually been funding their romantic European getaway using stolen corporate credit cards. Her parents, after what must have been an epic lecture about judgment and responsibility, reluctantly agreed to wire just enough money to purchase 2 last-minute economy class tickets home on the cheapest available flight. We're talking middle seats in the back row with multiple layovers through secondary airports. That 12-hour journey home must have been brutally uncomfortable in every conceivable way. Rachel's retaliation campaign began immediately upon her humiliating return to American soil. Since she couldn't attack my professional reputation, she decided to wage personal warfare instead. She started spreading absolutely vicious rumors throughout our mutual social circles about me being a controlling, manipulative monster who had been emotionally abusive throughout our entire relationship. According to her version of events, I was a jealous, vindictive sociopath who couldn't handle her leaving me for a superior man. So I'd engineered David's termination purely out of spite and romantic revenge. She painted herself as an innocent sufferer of my corporate power, completely omitting any mention of David's fraud or her own complicity in enjoying stolen money. She even escalated to sending me a lengthy, obviously lawyer-drafted email demanding the return of various gifts and possessions, claiming legal entitlement to portions of my personal property based on her emotional labor and contributions to our shared domestic life. The list included expensive furniture, artwork, and electronics that I had purchased years before we'd even met. This was purely amateur-hour intimidation tactics. I didn't even dignify her demands with a personal response. Instead, I simply forwarded her entire threatening email to my personal attorney. My lawyer is this brilliant, ruthless woman who specializes in corporate defense and personal protection for executives. She drafted an absolutely devastating cease and desist letter that systematically destroyed every single one of Rachel's claims and demands. The letter included detailed receipts and purchase records proving my sole ownership of every disputed item. It pointed out that her property claims were not only baseless, but potentially fraudulent in themselves. But the real masterstroke was the final paragraph, which noted that while Rachel had participated in David's corporate fraud as a knowing beneficiary who enjoyed the proceeds of stolen company funds, my corporation had thus far chosen not to pursue criminal charges against her personally. However, the letter strongly suggested that continued maltreatment or frivolous legal threats might cause our legal department to reconsider her status from potential witness to active co-conspirator in the original fraud. That threat of facing the full legal resources of a multi-billion-dollar corporation shut down Rachel's entire campaign instantly and permanently. No more rumors circulating through our social network. No more threatening emails. No more demands for property or compensation. Complete silence. Now, 4 months after the Paris incident, the final long-term consequences have crystallized into a beautifully complete picture of justice. David's professional life isn't just stalled, it's been completely obliterated. Our corporate legal department sent him formal demand letters for repayment of every single fraudulent dollar, totaling just over $24,000 in charges plus interest and administrative fees. They gave him 30 days to arrange a payment plan before escalating to civil litigation. Furthermore, our Human Resources Department followed standard protocol by sending detailed notification letters to the dean of David's business school. The letter outlined the complete circumstances of his termination, including specifics about financial misconduct and violation of corporate trust. An MBA from a prestigious institution is built entirely on professional networking and pristine reputation. David's foundation is now completely poisoned. He's been effectively blacklisted throughout our entire industry. No reputable technology firm will hire someone with a documented record of termination for financial fraud. His brilliant, fast-tracked career trajectory died before it ever really began. all because he couldn't resist using company money to impress a woman who wasn't even technically his girlfriend yet. Rachel's post-Paris life has been an equally spectacular slow-motion disaster. Her relationship with newly unemployed, disgraced, and financially ruined David evaporated within approximately 1 week of their humiliating return home. Turns out that dating someone facing massive debt and criminal prosecution isn't quite as attractive as dating someone with unlimited corporate spending power. She found herself in an absolutely terrible position on multiple fronts. She'd spent most of her personal savings on that emergency economy flight home and various Paris expenses before everything went sideways. She'd been publicly dumped by the man she'd very publicly left me for, which destroyed her narrative about upgrading to someone better. And she was essentially homeless since her name had never been on my apartment lease. The last reliable information I received indicated that Rachel was forced to move back in with her parents in suburban Ohio. Picture this: a woman in her late 20s with a college degree and professional career, living in her childhood bedroom surrounded by high school memorabilia, while her parents constantly remind her about the poor judgment that led to this situation. I did receive one final communication from Rachel about 6 weeks ago, sent from a completely new email address. It was this pathetic, rambling message that alternated between blaming me for supposedly ruining her life and offering vague, half-hearted apologies for how things ended up. Classic self-pitying monologue from someone who still refuses to accept responsibility for their own choices. I read the entire message, felt absolutely nothing beyond mild curiosity, then deleted it permanently and blocked the new address without responding. There was simply nothing left to say to her and no remaining connection worth maintaining. Meanwhile, my own life has been absolutely fantastic in every measurable way. My position within the company is stronger than it's ever been, with senior management viewing me as someone who can be trusted with major responsibilities and who will always prioritize corporate interests. My apartment is peaceful and organized exactly the way I prefer. I've been focusing intensely on advancing my career, maintaining excellent physical fitness, and reconnecting with friends I'd somewhat neglected while dealing with Rachel's drama. I genuinely don't consider what I did to be revenge in any emotional or vindictive sense. From my perspective, this was purely a risk management problem that required swift, decisive action. I had an employee who represented a major liability to company assets, plus a romantic partner who was actively complicit in his fraudulent behavior. I took the most logical and efficient steps available to neutralize both threats to my professional and personal stability. The fact that their personal lives completely imploded as a direct result was simply the predictable consequence of their own terrible decisions and criminal behavior. They chose to gamble using stolen money and my professional reputation as their stakes, and they lost more spectacularly than they could have ever imagined. Sometimes the universe delivers absolutely perfect justice exactly when you need it most, and all you have to do is get out of the way and let natural consequences play out.